There it goes. All right, can you see the slideshow?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so just a quick overview. As mentioned, most of our fires right now are up in the northwestern part of the Northern Rockies geographic area in general. So the main messages for sort of the state of the area is that we have an area of severe drought up in northwestern Montana with areas of moderate drought and unusual dryness around that. Generally, the southern and south central through southeastern parts of the state have stayed fairly wet, but around that we're seeing increasing dryness. Some areas have gotten less rain, but they haven't had as high temperatures. So those areas don't have as much drought. And in the last few days of rainfall, we didn't get a lot of rain over the driest portions of northwestern Montana. However, we did get some there today over some of our driest areas. So that is good news. So here's our current drought monitor. You can see that area of severe drought up in the northwestern part of the state with areas of moderate drought in the far northwestern corner of the state, and then surrounding that area of severe drought. As mentioned, south central through southeastern Montana has stayed pretty wet. And that's reflected also in the 30-day precipitation percent of normal that you see here. The brown is areas where we've been dry over the last 30 days compared to the norm. And that is both the northwestern part of the state and the northeastern part of the state, especially around Fort Peck Lake. However, since the 30-day temperature percent of normal has showed hot temperatures, unusually hot temperatures, primarily just in the northwestern part of the state. That's why they're in severe drought, as well as the lead up to the most recent month has led to them being drier than the rest of the state, where the area up in north central through northeastern Montana hasn't been as hot, so they have not seen as much of an impact from being drier than usual. So here's the precipitation that we've received over the state in the last 7 days. That does not include today. So up in the top right corner is a summary of the rain as it was coming in the middle of this afternoon. We have continued to see rainfall since then, with generally 1/10 of an inch around Kalispell and the Flathead area, which is where we really needed some rainfall, and even almost 1/2 an inch in some areas directly to the east of Kalispell, near some of the fires over there. But looking at the 7-day precipitation, you can see that the northern part of the state did not get as much rain, and they did not see as much of a result in ERC, burning index, 1,000 and 100-hour fuels. Those have stayed drier up in the northern edge of the state, especially in the northwest and northeast, while the southern parts of the state have seen a drastic increase in fuel moisture and reduction in ERC and burning index as a result of all the rain we got. So we're expecting the northern parts of the state to become dry again much faster. And for our next 7 days of precipitation that we're expecting, which is how far out we usually look at the models for precipitation, you can see that rainfall that we're going to get the rest of the day today across central Montana and a little bit of northeastern Montana. But after today's precipitation moves through, Montana stays mostly dry for the next few days, and the ridge over us in the upper levels will keep all the precipitation off in eastern North Dakota for the rest of this forecast period. Also of note, we have some windy conditions expected. There's already some winds today. We've seen, especially just to the lee of the Rocky Mountain front, some higher wind speeds and wind gusts. And for tomorrow, we're expecting more widespread winds really across the state, but the highest wind speeds are expected to be down in south central around Livingston area, with winds up continuing into all corners of the state, but especially also up by the area around Fort Peck Lake. So again, for the next 7 days, we're expecting increasing dryness around Montana. This is a look at all of the Northern Rockies geographic area, but specifically in far northwestern Montana and north central Montana, we're expecting to see increased dryness leading to a moderate risk for significant fire. And looking a little bit farther out into the future, in the 6 to 10 day window, we're expecting to see above normal temperatures with a really high confidence over in the Pacific Northwest as higher pressure builds in over there, and continuing to up to the Continental Divide. West of the Continental Divide, we're expecting to see higher temperatures, and then to the east of the Continental Divide with a little bit more cloudiness and a little bit more precipitation, we're expecting to see near normal to slightly below normal temperatures. And that lines up as well with what we're seeing for precipitation in the next few days, with below normal in the Pacific Northwest and near normal across the rest of Montana. 3 to 4 weeks out looks very similar, especially with temperature. We're still expecting to see slightly above normal temperatures to the west of the Continental Divide, near to slightly below normal temperatures in the rest of Montana, with generally above normal precipitation expected in the 3 to 4 weeks out. We have been looking at some model solutions that show some significant rain coming in, especially to the east of the Continental Divide in a few weeks, but that's pretty far out to be looking at for expected precipitation amounts or anything. That's just kind of the general outlook for what we're expecting. And then looking even farther out into the seasonal forecast, valid for August, September, and October, we continue to see that pattern of drier and warmer conditions expected to the west of the Continental Divide. Most concerningly is that area of below normal precipitation expected in the Pacific Northwest, extending into northwest Montana for the seasonal outlook. For the rest of the state, we're expecting equal chances of above or below normal precipitation or temperatures. But it's definitely important to note that with our current weather pattern, we are expecting some dryness and some warm temperatures to continue a little bit later in the season than we'd normally expect. So for our predictive services seasonal outlooks, we have above normal risk for significant wildland fire across much of northwestern and north central Montana for August. We've already seen some pretty significant fires off in western Montana early in the month, but thankfully we're seeing a reduction in that risk now. And that will continue into September. We're expecting to see that area of risk shrink significantly, just expecting that above normal risk to be from Glacier National Park off to the west and nothing really south of that. And then for October, we're expecting to go back to normal risk for significant wildland fire potential, just based on expected temperatures and everything for that time of year. But it is worth considering that with our current patterns, we could see that extending a little bit later than we're used to, but not to a huge extent, just because of climatologically when we're going to get cold here. My name is Rebecca McCormick. My colleagues in predictive services are Dan Borsum, the other meteorologist, and Aaron Noonan-Wright, who is our fire analyst. Please contact any of the three of us if you have any questions, but if you have any questions specifically, please let me know.
Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate you taking the time to present that to us.
All right. Is it done sharing the screen?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Okay, Corey, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Corey Kalnin. I'm the new Deputy Chief for the DNRC Fire Protection Bureau, here to cover just a little bit of a DNRC fire program update for folks this evening. As we've always talked about, in Montana, we enjoy a tremendous fire protection partnership between local government at the fire departments at the local level, our county partners, and DNRC. And that long-standing arrangement has been the backbone of initial attack on over 55 million acres of Montana, particularly for state and private land. And we've seen good success with that program, as we usually do this year. So far in Montana, we've recorded about 1,100 wildland fires for just over 67,000 acres. Most of those acres have been recorded in the last 2 weeks. We enjoyed a very slow start to the fire season with kind of cool, wetter conditions, but we're obviously in the thick of it now. And so with a normal progression into the core of August and the core of fire season, we appreciate the opportunity here to get together, talk with one another, and just make sure that we're ready for the remainder of the summer, especially as activity kicks up in other areas of the country, particularly the Southwest, Texas, and Alaska, all experiencing pretty late season activity for them in those areas. And just us settling into kind of our pace here and getting ready for things to come. So appreciate everybody's attention tonight. Appreciate the partnership we have with everybody, and look forward to continuing to work on that. Just a reminder as I get started here, we have mtfireinfo.org out there as a great resource, not only for the wildland fire management agencies, but for all you at the local level as well. This website contains a wealth of information in regards to fire restrictions, current fire information, fire prevention, fire preparedness resources that you can use, evacuation planning, and preparing for wildfire smoke. So just a little plug for that and the resources that are contained there, and an encouragement for folks in local fire departments to continue to use that. Speaking of fire restrictions and fire prevention, just a little plug that given the competition for resources across the country and across the state, doing everything we can to limit the human-caused wildfires is pretty important at the local level. We're all fairly familiar with burn bans and local fire restrictions, and those are tools that we have in the toolbox to help us limit, the impacts of human-caused fires and the resource suck that those tend to cause, and leaving us available to focus on the natural caused fires, or the lightning caused fires, or the accidental starts that work out there. So again, MT Fire Info contains the most updated information that we have in regards to areas under current fire restrictions. We encourage local governments to use burn bans that are a local tool and local decision, on a daily basis, whether to allow open burning or not, to prevent human-caused fires there. And just one note, burn bans are not shown on the MT Fire Info page. These are just fire restrictions, stage 1 or 2. But if you need help messaging local burn bans, just reach out to your DNRC point of contacts, and we'll do what we can to help support you there. Should your local county or area be interested in entering into fire restriction stage 1 or 2, we ask that you coordinate that through your local restrictions and closures coordinator. There's usually a local group that meets once a week or every other week to discuss current fire conditions, fire activity, and the need or not for restrictions. Work that through them. If you're not sure who that is, you can reach out to the DNRC point of contact to give you a hand, and then we'll work that through them. They'll help you ensure that the map gets populated correctly here for the public that visits this site. Just as a little reminder that if you are going to enter in restrictions, it requires a signed proclamation, whether that's the county commissioners or city council, whatever that may be. And we will need a copy of that signed proclamation to update the map here, should it be needed. But good resource here. Most of our restrictions at the current time are focused in Northwest Montana, although we do have a couple counties in North Central and Central Montana in stage 1 fire restrictions currently, and varying levels of burn bans across the state. So thanks to those of you that have been an active participant in all of that process. So here's just a kind of a quick look of where the fire activity has occurred for the state to date. Obviously, Northwest Montana pretty well lit up with the fire activity they've had up there in the summer, but we still continue to see fires in all areas. And this is based on fire occurrence reporting. So those of you that are familiar with the process of reporting fires to your local DNRC office, please continue to keep that up. We appreciate those statistics to provide us accurate reporting information across the state and populate the fire maps that we're sharing through MT Fire Info. But just kind of a summation of the fire activity we've seen, obviously around the population center and where Rebecca talked about the areas that are most dry there in North Central Montana. Shifting gears just a little bit, DNRC fire crews are staffed across the state, as we always are. But some of you may have heard about some additional preparedness assets that the state added just here in the last couple months. So through the 2023 legislative session, there were some funds appropriated for additional preparedness assets to help the state respond, quicker and better and faster to wildland fires across Montana. And that included contracting some resources in addition to our normal staffing to do just that. Just a quick rundown of what that currently looks like. We currently have one Type 3 helicopter that's stationed in Montana. Actually, that helicopter is flying a fire in Ponderay County as we speak, up there working out of the Helen office. We've also contracted 2 Type 1 helicopters that are currently based out of Missoula, although they can operate any place else in the state. They're supporting the Colt fire up near Seeley Lake, as well as local initial attack in western Montana, should they be needed. We've contracted 2 CL-415 Super Scoopers. Those are currently operating out of the Kalispell area and supporting wildfire operations in northwest Montana. We also have added 3 single engine air tankers or seats to the BIA operation at the Ronan Airport, helping to boost retardant delivery in that area. And then in the last 3 weeks, we've added 2 Type 2 initial attack hand crews. Those crews just completed their first 14-day assignment. They were very beneficial to fires in northwest Montana and west central Montana, and they've just been they just started their second tour with 1 crew assigned in Kalispell and 1 crew currently assigned in Missoula. Those resources will be with us, through the duration of August here, and we'll continue to move those around to areas of high priority and where they're needed to continue to respond to initial attack incidents as needed. So if you have questions about that, you can reach out to us here after the call. Everybody's favorite topic, just some fire business reminders as we continue to operate and probably move some more local government resources into paid status in support of wildfire response across the state. Just a reminder that the DNRC Fire Business website is a great resource for everything related to local government fire forces and the mobilization, payment, procurement of those resources. The website looks different this year. The state of Montana updated the DNRC website over the course of the winter, so things are in a little bit of a different spot. But if you just Google DNRC Fire, Local Government Fire Forces, or DNRC Fire Business, it will take you to this page, and there's a whole tab there with resources specific to local government partners. I encourage everybody to be somewhat familiar with that, as we begin getting a bit busier here, so they know where to find things should they have questions. And as always, your local DNRC office can be a resource there. Just some reminders, before things to make sure you've got squared away before we mobilize, making sure you've got a list of what equipment you have, what's on that equipment, is it on an incident rental agreement, are personnel signed up, do they have the right qualifications associated with their names, are there copies at the local DNRC office. Now is the time to be thinking about making sure your paperwork's squared away, so in the event of a mobilization, we're not chasing it down after the fact. So just another encouragement of working with your local office. Usually this is pre-season work, stuff we do in the spring. But if you haven't yet done that and haven't caught up on that, please do so in the very near future. We encourage all local government fire forces, whenever they're mobilizing a fire, to practice, keeping shift tickets and CTRs to keep track of their time. And that's just a good opportunity to practice that. And should we mobilize into a paid status, it's just another good resource we have to document those efforts. Just a reminder, particularly as we have several incidents across the state that are on solely federal jurisdiction, but may overlap with local government or rural fire districts, DNRC remains the payment entity for those for personnel and equipment hired through us. So just make sure you're coordinating if we have incidents on federal jurisdictions and they're asking to hire your equipment, make sure your local DNRC point of contact is in the loop there and that we've got paperwork taken care of accordingly. So one last reminder, in an effort to keep on top of fire accounts and keeping tabs on fire costs and expenditures, we do ask that you, upon demobilization of a fire incident, you get those payment packets in your local office within 30 days and certainly no later than 60 days. That just helps us keep on time so we can get those paid. Once we have them and have everything complete, it's our goal to process those documents within 30 days and get money turned around back to the county treasurer so that they can pay the local fire department. Of course, you can always ask help if needed, and we're happy to do so. One last thing I'd like to just touch on that we've talked about in previous years, but is an important component of how we respond to fires, particularly in the wild and urban interface across Montana. And it's this tool we call the Local Government Critical Mission Task Force. In times of serious need, DNRC will work with our local government partners to assemble task forces for a very mission-specific purpose and a limited time frame as kind of a surge capacity to help incidents kind of get over the hump, or until they can get more or other different types of resources on scene. This is we didn't use it in 2022, but we have front loaded it a couple times this year with a couple counties. One was for the Colt fire, as that was making a move toward the Highway 83 corridor and the communities around north of Seeley Lake. And then week before last, as Lake County and the surrounding areas around Lake County and the Confederate Salish and Kootenai tribes had several fires moving and threatening structures, we did front load some task forces there. But the intent of this is to compile some resources from say a given county or area into a task force and mobilize them to an entity that needs them. Structure protection, for example, when other resources or the incident resources would easily be overwhelmed with the amount of fire on the ground or just the activity that's going on. The mobilizations typically should not exceed 72 hours. And it's a one goes, we all go. Once the entire task force is finished with the task at hand, that those resources return home. Couple key points with that. It is similar to, but does not replace mutual aid assistance from your neighboring jurisdictions. So those mutual aid plans and planning should be always the first call for resources should it be needed, your local partners. And that includes the Montana mutual aid process, which is still out there and available should it be needed. The key thing with this local government critical mission task force is because this is in paid status, it's approved, ordered, and coordinated via DNRC. So a local jurisdiction can ask DNRC for assistance getting these, but because it is reimbursable mobilization, it's got to be approved and blessed by DNRC. That's why we insert ourselves into the coordination of this and have done so in the past. And those resources will remain kind of under DNRC or the local land office control, although we will loan those to the incident, to complete their mission. They're mobilized as a task force, demobilized as a task force, and do not get assigned to the incident. So if folks are interested and available for that, keep in touch with your local office. It helps if you already have completed the fire finance paperwork that I spoke about earlier, your incident rental agreements, your chief certification forms, and all that's on file and ready to go prior to an incident occurring. It makes that mobilization go much smoother in the long run and helps keep us from having to chase a bunch of paperwork after the fact. But certainly you can reach out to me as well, and we kind of keep a running list of who may be available. And really, we rely on resources from the closest proximity to an incident to mobilize first before we go too far out. We do tend to go to fire departments and counties with existing contracts. Like I said, it just helps that mobilization go a little bit smoother when resources are already in the system, and we know they have the kind of the technical know-how to navigate the fire finance system. And help us out on that regard. So lastly, a couple things just for us. As I mentioned, DNRC is the mobilization and payment lead for all local government across the state. We're here to support you with that. There's a ton of resources on the DNRC Local Government Fire Forces Fire Business page, should you need them. The NRC Mobilization of Local Government Fire Forces, known as the Umbrella Document, and Chapter 50 are the documents that guide how we do business within the wildfire system. keeping in contact with your state offices is probably the most important thing you can do when you're available and when you may not be, and making sure you get your paperwork in. And I think just the general message and kind of the theme of this call is, make sure we're here. We're talking about what are we going to do when we have a fire, helping out our neighbors, establishing those mutual aid plans, conversations, getting ready for when things do, because, it's going to dry back out. The rain's going to stop. The wind's going to blow in the fall, and we're going to continue to have big fires until we see the snow fly. So, we're kind of asking everybody, and we like to do this call to make sure you're prepared for incidents to go big. It's fire season in Montana, and we ask everybody to be ready for that. So my contact info there should it be needed. And then lastly, just to thank you again, we have a great partnership with our local government partners through the county co-op program. And we really appreciate the work that gets done out there, the sacrifices that are made, volunteer rural fire departments across the state to quickly jump on fires and take care of problems before they become big problems. So with that, I'm good. I will pause for questions.
Corey, this is Juanita with Flathead County.
You bet.
So one of our fires was looking for a line paramedic, and because they hadn't turned their EFF paperwork in before the cutoff date with the land office, they were telling us that we can't sign them up as an EFF. I think this is going to be one of those things, especially up in our part of the world, that we may need to make exceptions. Is that something we can do? Because I know right now we ended up ordering up an ambulance with a crew for this fire, and they're going to send the paramedics from the ambulance onto the line, and the ambulance is just going to sit there.
Yeah. Let's chat offline, Juanita. Local offices have local protocols that they have to kind of manage the volume of paperwork, at given points of the summer, and they do set some deadlines just to keep people on track. And so that when things are on fire, we're not doing things that we had hoped to do in the spring. So let's visit, give me a ring after this, and we'll talk through what we can maybe do to work that with the Northwest Land Office.
Perfect. And like I said, I think line paramedics are going to become a hot resource.
You bet.
Any other questions for Corey? So I'll just kind of reiterate a couple things. If you don't have, or you're not familiar with that umbrella document, get it, save it, print it off, read it every night before you go to bed, or something to that particular fashion, because it is truly that guiding document, how DNRC interfaces with local government. And there's new methods in there for some, the option 3 MOUs, that type of thing, that really dials in how we can become more of an integral part with the system. The other thing to keep in mind, and Corey mentioned it again, with that critical mission task force, that's a great resource, but it absolutely does not take the place of mutual aid. It takes a little bit of time to get that put together, those resources put together, and get them mobilized. So if you need immediate help, work with your mutual aid partners. If you haven't developed those partnerships now, you should be. And then realize that critical mission task force is going to supplement that mutual aid and come in and be that longer duration kind of thing. Again, many of us are familiar with Montana mutual aid, but when we think back what that looks like, truly neighbor helping neighbor, or maybe we'd come across county lines 2 or 3, 4 counties away. Typically that was really geared for that 24-hour event, where this is really geared. Again, it can help within that 24 hours, even though it might take 12 hours for us to get that mobilized. But it might buy you that 72-hour window. And I think Corey would agree that if it takes a little longer to get 72 hours to get you some help in there before a team can get its resources, or whatever the case may be, there's probably some flexibility in there, but they really want to keep that a shorter duration kind of thing. And that's an opportunity for our folks who aren't completely vested into going on 14-day assignments, but want to go help. There's a great opportunity for them to be involved, to go out somewhere for the next 2 or 3 days and then come back home and be available for what their local jurisdictions really are. So those are great points. Work with your local offices, establish those relationships now. before things truly get heated up, because as we all know, I think for those of us that can remember back far enough, this is actually when our fire season used to start way back in the day. And then it ramped up from here. So I guess when they say normal fire season, this is kind of what we're looking at. Thanks, Corey, for that presentation. Looks like anything from Patrick from County Fire Wardens or Adrian.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick this off. Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick Lonig, and I'm with Gallatin County. I'm the president of the Montana County Fire Wardens Association. Just a couple of things to pass on to the group. The Fire Wardens Association, along with the Fire Chiefs Association, both represent local government on the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group. And then when things start getting busier, we shift over and continue to represent local government with the Multi-Agency Coordination Group, the MAC group, that allocates scarce resources and prioritizes incidents. And what I just wanted to throw out to you is we're representing you. Feel free to reach out. If you have some sort of priority that you feel is not being recognized, or there's some sort of value at risk of your incidents when things get busy, you know, sometimes it can be hard to pick up all the issues that are out there and recognize some of the priorities that you may know about. So if you feel like something's being missed and not recognized in terms of values at risk and unrecognized priorities, you know, do feel free to reach out to us and let us know so we can make sure that's being recognized by the folks that are setting the priorities for the incidents and allocating resources. Additionally, you know, the Northern Rockies Coordinating Group spends a lot of time working on coordination of some of these interagency activities that support us during fire season with the incident management teams, the dispatch system, and a variety of other related topics. And I'd also throw out to you that if you're having some sort of struggle with an incident, whether it's ongoing or something that didn't go well, and it's maybe something that we could help address or highlight, you know, please feel free to reach out with what that challenge is that's taking place. And conversely, if you see something that works well, something that's been changed or is working well, let us know about that too, so we can take that into account and reinforce that either this year or down the road. And those are really the couple items I had to pass on, Rich.
All right, thanks, Patrick. So a little bit to tag on to what Patrick said, and I'm looking through the attendee list here, and I think this is somewhat preaching to the choir for most folks that are on this call, but nonetheless we'll cover it, is that we are one of the few geographic areas within the United States that has representation of local government the way that we do, in partnership with the state at that coordination level. So we have the ability to kind of head off problems that sometimes rear up that in some other areas would become big deals. And a little history lesson of that is that 15, 20 years ago, I don't remember how long the committee's been working together now, is that sometimes there wasn't the relationship that we had between local government and DNRC and our systems across this state even. And so out of some of those lessons learned, we developed the State Wildland Committee, which partners the state fire chiefs, DNRC, and the county fire wardens together so that we can talk through some of these issues and work them out, hopefully before wildland season, and so that we're on a common page and a common direction and goal. Having said that, there's also policy direction. Sometimes things have to be the way they are, and it is what it is, but we have the ability to try and fine tune those before they become critical problems with that representation. So in light of that, there are a couple opportunities for folks if they are willing or wanting to serve on that wildland committee, especially from part of the Chiefs Association. We have a good representation from DNRC, from operations to training to the business side of things. The fire wardens has some pretty significant representation from various counties across the state. We can use a couple more fire chiefs that help represent that that side of things on the committee. So if folks are interested, please reach out, and we'll see if we can get you involved in everything that we can. The other kind of things that's out there that helps is we all know, or should know by now, that monies are tied to data in today's world. And and for many years, DNRC has been asking us somewhat quietly in years past. It's become more vocal and pointed in current times to make sure we're getting our fire reports in a timely fashion, and helping to gather that data, because they're able to, like DNRC is able to use that data to go to a legislative session and ask for more things, such as what was happened a little bit at this last legislative session, that we're able to get them additional resources like Corey talked about. So part of that is building a database, which we're trying to do through the State Chiefs Association in conjunction with the Volunteers Association, and I'll throw the County Fire Wardens Association in there a little bit to create that database of what does the fire service look like across the state of Montana. And one would think that's relatively easy to come up with that. And I will tell you that we've worked on this project for Lord knows how many years. And honestly, we still have not got a complete picture, because folks, for whatever reason, don't feel that information sharing is that beneficial. But we're asking, if not pleading with you, if you haven't done it, please do it. There's a web, Michael sent out from the State Chiefs Association a brief survey that we're trying to create this database. If you have done it, thank you. Now ask your neighbor if they've done it, and if not, help them, so that we can try and create a complete picture of what the fires, as complete as we can, of what the fire service looks across the state. We know we got a request from Corey just a couple of days ago from the Department of Administration, I believe it was, Corey, that you sent out, that's asking for this broad-based picture of what the fire service looks like. And right now, all we can give them is estimates. So please take the time, if you haven't done that, to do that. Corey just sent it out in the chat what the link is to that. So if you haven't done it, please do it, or ask your neighbors and your mutual aid partners if they've done it, so we can try and capture that as much as possible. So I kind of think that's where we're at for right now. Luckily, not a overbearing wildland season, but we got a bit of time yet to go. So at this point, we'll kind of say if anybody in the audience has any questions or comments. I think there is an opportunity to put it in chat if you'd like to, or raise your hand if you want to be acknowledged, or blurt something out there if anybody's got any questions about what they heard tonight. At least we're not telling you tonight that there's no resources available yet. But that could come in a later meeting if we have one, as the season goes along. Okay, kind of a quiet group tonight. All right, well, we can do a quick round robin then. Corey, anything left on your side of things?
No, I don't think so. Those of you getting some rain tonight, enjoy it. It won't last, so appreciate everybody's attention.
So Tom Coley put in the chat, seems like the survey is directed towards individual fire departments, and that is correct, Tom. What we would ask, especially maybe from the county fire warden level, is that maybe as fire wardens, you could take some of that on to say, if folks haven't completed it, could we at least get some basic knowledge of what's going on in those counties? So how is that for an answer? You asked the question and I gave it back to you. Patrick, anything else? Adrian, I don't know if Patrick had to jump off. All right, looks like Adrian had to jump off too. All right, well, if there's no questions, folks, thanks for attending. And as the season heats up, if there's a need or folks want to, we can do another one of these. Again, currently PL3, still some resources available, only a smaller area of the state, northwest states being really impacted right now, but stay tuned. Things could try out and change in our areas pretty quick. So thanks everybody for coming, and ultimately at the end of the day, stay safe. That's the main thing. See you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care, Ed.